My parents paid off my sister's $300K debt. While I'm left with $320K, I stood outside my parents' house that night, coat collar pulled tight against the chill, staring through the glowing window like a stranger. Inside, my family lifted champagne flutes, laughter spilling into the suburban street. My parents beamed arms around my younger sister, Maya. The banner above the fireplace read, "Debt-free doctor." That phrase clanged in my chest. Debt-free. For her. Meanwhile, I carried $320,000 in student loans, a figure so heavy, it felt like a second skeleton inside me. We'd graduated together from the same med school the same month, but only one of us had been gifted freedom. My father raised his glass, his voice carrying through the glass like an unwanted sermon. To Maya, beginning her residency without a single dollar of debt, thanks to sacrifices we gladly made. The room erupted in cheers. I saw the pearl necklace around her throat, grandmother's heirloom. My mother's tears glistened like stage lights. My hands clenched. They had promised equal support years ago, $140,000 each. We both knew med school cost dwarfed that, but I planned, budgeted, hustled, cut corners. I lived in a shoebox apartment, ate ramen, skipped vacations, and I believed them. Believed fairness was real in this family. Tonight, I finally understood it never was. I didn't step inside. Not yet. I stayed rooted to the lawn, an outsider to my own blood. The irony was cinematic, the capable son, the reliable one left in the cold while the struggling daughter bathed in applause. My chest ached with more than anger. It was betrayal layered on betrayal, each one stretching back to childhood dinners where my A's were expected while hers were framed on the fridge. Something shifted in me as I stood there. A realization as sharp as the winter air. They didn't just forget me, they chose her. Again. And maybe that choice had been made long before tonight. I could have walked away, quietly added this moment to the invisible ledger of unfairness I'd carried all my life. But something in me snapped. I wouldn't let the story end this way, not with me watching through glass, playing the silent extra in a celebration built on my erasure. Ask yourself, what would you do if your parents erased your struggle in front of the entire family? Would you swallow it like always, or finally make them taste the truth they'd buried for decades? That night, I decided I was going to speak. And once I did, nothing in this family would ever look the same again. Growing up, people called us the perfect family. A polished colonial house in suburban Boston, hedges trimmed golden retriever, wagging in the yard. My dad was a hospital administrator at Mass General. My mom, the principal of a high-ranking high school. From the outside, we looked like the kind of family you'd see on a college brochure. But behind the white picket fence was a script that never changed. I was the son who excelled without asking, the one who got straight A's and honor roll mentions. When I brought home another perfect report card, Dad would pat my shoulder and say, "Good job, Emmanuel. That's what we expect." The praise was measured almost transactional. Maya, 3 years younger, lived under a different set of rules. If she managed a B+ surrounded by C's, it was a celebration night. Ice cream trips, balloons. My mom would announce to relatives Maya worked so hard for this. Their pride in her efforts seemed boundless while my results were reduced to obligations. It wasn't jealousy, at least not at first. I loved her. I wanted to protect her. But I couldn't ignore how differently we were seen. My wins were invisible, hers were fireworks. My failures were warnings, hers were growth moments. That imbalance became the family air we breathed. And it bent me in ways I didn't notice until later. I learned to chase perfection, not for joy, not even for ambition, but for scraps of recognition. Every accolade I earned was another desperate audition for my parents' approval. Meanwhile, Maya grew into the role of the adored one. Teachers called her charming. Neighbors fawned over her wit. At home, my parents treated her struggles like battles worth rallying around. Mine quietly expected to be handled alone. By the time high school rolled around, the blueprint was carved deep. I stacked science fairs, volunteering shifts, SAT scores like bricks building my dream of becoming a doctor. Maya floated on easier currents. When she chose psychology at BU, our parents furnished her apartment, stocked her fridge, checked in weekly. When I left for Johns Hopkins, they hugged me at the airport, told me to stay focused, and drove home. Ask yourself, what would that do to your wiring? To be the child whose achievements never triggered pride, only obligation while watching your sibling praised for simply trying. This was the silent ledger that followed me into adulthood. I thought med school would balance it out, that hard work would finally speak louder than favoritism. But that night, watching the debt-free toast through the window, I knew I'd been wrong. My dream of becoming a doctor started when I was 10. At a family picnic, my uncle saved a drowning child with CPR. Watching him shift from family joker to lifesaver in seconds carved something into me. From that moment, I knew what I wanted. I chased that dream with obsession. Straight A science fairs, volunteering at hospitals, shadowing doctors on weekends. By the time I got into Johns Hopkins, my parents were proud, but it felt measured as though my success had been assumed. Then came Northwestern's med school acceptance. For me, it was the reward for a decade of discipline. My parents hosted a small dinner, polite applause, a toast. That same night, Maya, still in undergrad, announced she wanted to apply too. The reaction was thunderous. Tears cheers my father, raising his glass, as though her intentions outweighed my reality. A year later, she joined me at Northwestern. Her GPA and MCAT weren't as strong, but my parents said her interviews were magnetic. They visited often, staying in nice hotels, taking her to dinners I was too busy to attend. When I could make it, the conversation always circled back to her. Before she started, my parents promised us both $140,000 toward tuition. Equal support, they said. I built my financial life around that: frugal meals, a tiny studio, late nights, and labs. I calculated I'd graduate with around $180,000 in loans. Manageable, I thought. Maya struggled early. When she failed anatomy, she called me in tears. I built her a study plan, met her weekly, coached her through exams. Our parents swooped in. 2 hired tutors, met professors, stayed for days to help. They never did that for me. But I told myself it was fine. I was capable. By the time we graduated, me in emergency medicine, her in family medicine, we were set to start residency together. Our parents threw a dinner. My mom clasped grandmother's pearl necklace around Maya's neck. For our daughter, the doctor. I got a store-bought watch. I told myself it didn't matter. Then came the real blow. At dessert, my father cleared his throat. We've decided to pay off Maya's loans. All of them. Maya gasped, cried, hugged them. I sat frozen. When I asked, "What about mine?" the answer was quiet but sharp. "Son, you've always been fine on your own." That night, I understood the truth. The promise of equality at the kitchen table years ago was never real. I was the one expected to carry debt because I was the one expected to carry everything. Maya's first year nearly broke her. I remember the late night call when she whispered through sobs, "I failed anatomy. I don't think I can do this." I dropped everything, built her a study plan, met her weekly, despite my own packed schedule. She passed barely, but the cost was mine to carry too. Our parents reacted like generals mobilizing troops. They flew and stayed for a week, hired tutors, even spoke to her professors. They threw everything at her struggle as if failure wasn't an option. I watched quietly, wondering if they'd have done the same for me. Deep down, I knew the answer. When Maya was put on probation, forced to repeat courses, they weren't disappointed, they rallied. My dad squeezed her shoulder, saying, "We'll get you through this." My mom whispered, "You're stronger than you think." Meanwhile, I was excelling top 10% of my class, offered a research slot, praised for leadership. Their response? A nod. "Good job, Emmanuel. Keep it up." That's when I began to understand the family math. Maya's struggles were spotlight moments worthy of rescue. My achievements were background noise already assumed. Being capable meant being invisible. Still, I tried to be proud of her. She was my sister. She deserved to succeed. But when I saw my parents' credit card bills, hotel stays, tutors, endless dinners, I realized where the equal funds were going. They had been quietly reducing her debt all along, while I maxed out loans semester after semester. By graduation, I stood with a mountain of $320,000 on my shoulders. Maya had a fraction of that, though I didn't yet know how deep the disparity went. My parents posed for pictures, beaming with her in the center. I was there too, off to the side, a prop in the family photo of success. Ask yourself, what would you do if every struggle of your sibling was treated as urgent and heroic, while your own victories were dismissed as expected? Would you keep clapping, or would you finally ask why no one was clapping for you? It was supposed to be a simple family dinner. My parents invited us to a quiet Italian place near the hospital. They said it was to celebrate all the sacrifices we had made as a family. I was exhausted after a 24-hour shift, but I showed up anyway, tie cricket white coat folded in the back seat of my car. The first half of the evening was ordinary. Bread baskets, small talk, wine glasses clinking. Maya told stories about her patients, how one child drew her a crayon thank you card. My mom dabbed her eyes like she was listening to the State of the Union. My dad kept snapping photos of her on his phone. I spoke about a trauma case I'd handled, a patient who survived against impossible odds. My father nodded politely and went back to asking Maya about her weekend plans. Then, right as dessert menus arrived, my dad cleared his throat. He had that serious tone, the one he used when announcing family decisions. "Your mother and I have been thinking about the future," he began. "We want both of you to start your residency strong. And for Maya, that means without financial burdens." Maya blinked. "What do you mean?" My mom smiled wide. "We've decided to pay off all of your loans, honey. Every last dollar. You'll walk into your residency debt-free." Her gasp was so sharp, the waiter turned his head. She covered her mouth, tears brimming, whispering, "Oh my God." "Thank you." They hugged her at the table. Other diners glanced over, mistaking us for a happy, normal family. I sat frozen, fork still in hand. "What about mine?" I finally asked. The silence that followed was worse than any answer. My father placed his glass down slowly. "Emmanuel, you've always been capable. You've managed on your own. You'll be fine." That was it. No promise of future help. No recognition that I had the same loans, the same weight crushing me. Just, "You'll be fine." Maya tried to smile through her tears, but even she looked uneasy. She reached for my hand under the table. I pulled it back. In that moment, something cracked inside me. Years of being the reliable son, the strong one, the invisible achiever, it all collapsed into a single suffocating truth. I was never going to be chosen. Not for help, not for pride, not even for fairness. I excused myself before dessert arrived. My parents called after me, confused, but I didn't look back. Out in the parking lot, under the yellow glow of a street lamp, I finally let myself feel it. Not just anger, grief, because my family had just told me in front of tiramisu and strangers that I was on my own. A week after that dinner, I couldn't sleep. I sat at my desk, surrounded by unopened bills and financial statements that looked more like shackles than paper. My apartment was silent except for the buzz of the fridge. My mind replayed my father's words on loop, "You'll be fine." On impulse, I dug through the box of family papers I carried from apartment to apartment. Old report cards, tax receipts, my mom's meticulous files. I don't know what I was looking for, maybe proof that I wasn't crazy. That once, somewhere, they had treated me fairly. Instead, I found the opposite. The first envelope was from my college years. My parents had promised equal support, half my tuition, half Maya's. But the numbers told another story. My statements showed exact deposits of $3,000 a semester. Hers showed checks of $7,000, sometimes $8,500. Every semester without fail. My chest tightened. I flipped further back. Medical school, same pattern. My ledger $140,000, exactly the number they swore would be split evenly. Maya's ledger more than double. Tuition checks in her name, credit card payments directly to her landlord receipts for books and living stipends. And then the note that gutted me. Scrawled in my father's messy script across a yellow post-it, prioritize Maya. She needs it more. Emmanuel will manage. Those 5 words, Emmanuel will manage, burned hotter than any betrayal. It was proof in writing that this wasn't an oversight. It wasn't chance. It was a choice repeated year after year, dressed up as necessity, justified as fairness. I sat there with the papers spread around me like evidence in a trial. My whole childhood, I had believed my parents simply didn't notice the imbalance. That maybe they weren't aware how deeply it cut. But here it was deliberate. I wasn't overlooked. I was dismissed on purpose. The next day I called Maya. I asked if she knew. She went quiet. Then softly, she admitted. They told me not to say anything. They didn't want you to feel bad. Her words hollowed me out. Not only had they chosen her, but she had agreed to the silence. She let me believe in equal treatment while she cashed in on the lie. I wanted to scream to unload years of swallowed hurt. Instead, I hung up. My throat burned with unsaid words. That night, I spread the documents across my kitchen table, each receipt like a scar. Ask yourself, what would you do if you discovered the betrayal wasn't an accident, but a family policy written in ink? Would you confront them? Burn every bridge at once, or let the silence rot you from the inside? I stared at that post-it until dawn. I realized I wasn't going to keep managing. Not anymore. I didn't make an appointment. I didn't warn them. On a gray Sunday morning, I drove straight to my parents' house with the box of documents in my trunk. Every mile of that drive felt like I was climbing a mountain I couldn't turn back from. When my mother opened the door, she smiled like nothing was wrong. Emmanuel, what a surprise. Come in. I'll make coffee. I didn't step inside. I carried the box straight to the dining table, spilling papers across the polished wood, where we'd eaten countless family dinners. Bank statements, tuition receipts, that post-it note. My father entered from the living room newspaper under his arm. His eyes landed on the pile, then on me. What's this? My voice shook, but I forced it steady. Proof. Years of proof that you gave Maya everything and left me with scraps. You told me it was equal. You swore it was equal. But you lied. My mom touched her necklace nervously. Emmanuel, don't overreact. We did what was necessary. Maya needed more help. I cut her off. And I didn't. You watched me drown in debt? You watched me break my back to manage a loan while she got tutors, stipends, rent checks. You let me believe I was supported while secretly deciding I didn't deserve it. My dad's face tightened. It's not about deserving. It's about survival. Maya was fragile. She struggled. You didn't. You were strong. We thought you'd understand. Understand? I laughed bitterly. Understand that you punished me for being strong? That you rewarded her weakness and called it love? Silence fell heavy over the table. My mom whispered, we thought you wouldn't notice? You never complained? That's the point. I snapped. I didn't complain because I trusted you. And you used that to justify abandoning me. Maya appeared in the doorway, then summoned by my mom's nervous call earlier. She looked guilty, but her first words were defensive. Emmanuel, please don't make this about me. I didn't ask for them to. I slammed the post-it onto the table. You knew. You let me live in ignorance while you accepted every check. You smiled while I carried the weight. Her eyes filled, but she didn't deny it. I'm sorry, she whispered. Sorry. One brittle word dropped into a void years deep. Ask yourself, what would you do if your parents justified betrayal as necessity, and your sibling admitted complicity with nothing but sorry? Would you forgive? Would you explode? Or would you finally let the whole house of cards fall? I gathered the papers back into the box. My parents watched, pale and silent. At the door, I said one thing, I will never forget this. Then I left. The confrontation should have been the breaking point. I thought I'd walk out of that house and never look back. But my father had other plans. A week later, a letter arrived in the mail. Heavy envelope, legal seal, my father's handwriting across the front. Inside was a draft of their will. The language was sharp, sterile, lawyer written. But the message was clear. Everything, the house, the savings, the heirlooms, was to go to Maya. My name was reduced to a footnote. A token bequest of a few family keepsakes, the kind that could be boxed up in an afternoon and shoved into a garage. I read it 3 times before the words fully sank in. My throat tightened. After everything I'd sacrificed, all the years I trusted them, they were still choosing her. Not just in private, but now on paper for eternity. I called my father. He answered on the second ring, voice cold. You got the letter? Yes, I said. What the hell is this? It's what's fair, he replied. We can't have disputes after we're gone. Maya will need the stability more than you. Fair? My voice cracked. You've stripped me out of my own family and you call it fair. He sighed like I was a child being difficult. You've always managed on your own. You'll be fine. She won't. The words hit harder than any slap. They had made me invisible, a ghost in my own lineage. Later that night, Maya texted me. I didn't ask for this. Please don't hate me. I stared at the message, fingers trembling over the keyboard, but didn't reply. Because how could she claim innocence while cashing in every silent choice they made? My husband saw me pacing the living room, fists clenched. He asked, "What are you going to do?" And I told him the truth. I don't know, but I won't let them erase me. Not like this. Ask yourself, if your parents threatened to cut you out of their legacy just to protect the child they favored, would you fight back, or would you walk away leaving them to their own poison? The invitation came in a group text from my mother. Family dinner. Sunday, everyone's expected. It read more like a summons than an invite. I almost deleted it. But something inside me whispered, go, not to reconcile, but to witness the end. When I walked in, the dining room looked the same as always. The table polished, the roast glistening under amber light. My mother's smile stretched thin, like a mask she'd worn too long. Maya was already seated, glowing in her practiced way, as if she'd been rehearsing for this scene her whole life. My father stood at the head of the table, carving knife poised like a gavel. I sat without speaking. The clatter of forks and clink of glasses filled the room, but no one looked at me directly. Finally, my father cleared his throat. We're here to put this nonsense behind us. Family should not be divided. I almost laughed. Nonsense. That was the word he chose for decades of betrayal. My mother added softly, we can't undo the past, Emmanuel, but we can move forward. Maya is the heir. That's decided. You'll always have a place here as our son. But I cut her off. A place at the table, but not in the will. Is that what you're offering, a plate of food and a pat on the head while everything else goes to her silence? My father's jaw tightened. Enough. You've embarrassed us long enough. If you can't accept the terms, maybe it's best you stay away. There it was. The ultimatum. Obedience or exile. I looked around the table. At Maya, who avoided my eyes. At my mother, lips trembling as she sipped wine. At my father, cold and unbending. And then I felt it, that strange calm that comes when the worst thing you fear has already happened. I set down my fork, pushed back my chair. Then I'll make it easy for you. This is the last dinner you'll ever see me at. My chair scraped against the hardwood like a warning bell. No one followed me. No one stopped me. The door shut behind me with a finality that echoed louder than any of their words. Ask yourself if your family made it clear you are nothing but a guest in your own bloodline. Would you beg for a seat, or would you walk out and never return? 3 days passed in silence. No texts, no calls. I thought maybe that dinner had finally severed the tie for good. Then Saturday morning, an insistent knock rattled my apartment door. I opened it to see my parents standing shoulder to shoulder, like they always did when they wanted to present a united front. My father's face was stern, my mother's eyes glassy, and behind them, hovering awkwardly on the stairs, was Maya. Emmanuel, my father began, his voice clipped, we need to talk. I didn't step aside. Talk about what? You made it clear the other night. I'm out. My mother reached forward, clutching my arm. Please just hear us. Don't do this. Don't throw away your family. I almost laughed. Don't throw away my family? As if I'd been the one swinging the axe. You threw me away years ago. You just finally said it out loud? Maya moved closer, her voice trembling. I didn't want this, Em. I never asked to be the favorite. I hate that it came to this. I looked at her, my sister, my rival, my mirror of everything I'd been denied. For a second, I saw the scared little girl she used to be, clinging to our mother's skirt. Maybe she wasn't the enemy, but she'd benefited from my loss all the same. My father's tone hardened. Enough of this dramatics. We raised you, we pay for you. We gave you everything you needed to succeed. If you can't appreciate that, then maybe what I snapped. My voice echoed down the stairwell. You'll cut me out too late. You already did? The words hung between us like smoke. My mother broke down, tears spilling. Maya looked away ashamed. And my father? He just stared stone-faced, as if he'd rather watch his son burn bridges than admit he'd built the fire. Finally, I said, I'm done begging for a seat at your table. If blood means loyalty only when it benefits you, then maybe I don't need blood. I'll build my own family with people who actually choose me. I closed the door before any of them could answer. My mother's muffled sobs echoed in the hall. My father didn't knock again. That was the last time I saw them standing together on my doorstep. But endings have a way of birthing beginnings. And what came after, I never expected. 2 weeks passed without a word. I was beginning to feel lighter, as though shutting that door had also shut out years of weight pressing down on my chest. Then one Thursday afternoon, I found an envelope wedged into my mailbox with a heavy legal seal stamped across the front. Inside, a letter from a Boston law firm. My grandfather's attorney. My pulse quickened. To the heirs of Richard Whitman, it began. The estate division meeting will take place next month. Attendance is mandatory. My grandfather, the one man in my family who treated me and Maya equally, had passed a few months earlier. He'd left behind the Cape Cod property, the one my parents secretly sold to cover Maya's tuition. Except, here was paperwork suggesting it was still listed as part of the estate. Confused, I called the attorney immediately. He explained gently that yes, my parents had tried to sell the cottage, but the deed had been placed in a trust years ago. Legally, they couldn't finalize the sale without both heirs' consent, mine and Maya's. And here's the twist, my grandfather had set it up so that the cottage and several investments would pass directly to me. Not to both of us, just me. I sat frozen at my kitchen table, the lawyer's words buzzing like static. My grandfather had known. He must have seen the imbalance, the favoritism, the constant tilt toward Maya. and he'd taken steps to correct it after death in the only way he could. A wave of vindication surged through me, quickly followed by dread. Because now I was the target. The asset they wanted, the one they thought they'd already taken, was mine alone. And I knew my parents well enough to know they wouldn't accept that without a fight. When I hung up my phone, lit with a new message. From my father. Just 3 words. We need to talk. The estate meeting was set for a rainy Tuesday. I walked into the oak-paneled conference room with the letter still folded in my jacket pocket, half expecting my parents to already be seated at the long polished table. They were. And beside them, predictably sat Maya, wringing her hands as if she'd been dragged into a courtroom she never wanted to enter. The attorney began reading my grandfather's will. His voice was calm, deliberate, and each word was another nail in the coffin of my parents' illusions. The Cape Cod cottage mine. The investment accounts tied to it mine. A small stipend from Maya, yes, but the bulk of my grandfather's estate, mine. The silence that followed was suffocating. My father's jaw clenched so hard, I thought his teeth might crack. My mother's eyes darted between me and the lawyer, already searching for loopholes. And Maya, she just stared at me, guilt painted across her face. This is outrageous, my father finally spat. My father would never have chosen sides like this. But the attorney calmly slid a notarized statement across the table, my grandfather's handwriting clear and firm. I have witnessed unequal treatment between my grandchildren. This property and its assets will go solely to Emmanuel to restore balance. My mother's face went pale. Maya whispered, I didn't know. I swear I didn't know. And maybe she didn't. But my parents? They weren't letting go. They leaned forward, voices low but sharp like knives. Emmanuel, you can't keep this, my mother said. That cottage is family history. It belongs to all of us. No, I replied. It belonged to Grandpa. And he decided it belongs to me now. And that's when my father dropped the pretense. We'll contest it. We'll drag this through court if we have to. You think you can cut us out? You think you can humiliate us twice? Think again? I should have been terrified, but instead a strange calm washed over me. For once, the truth wasn't mine alone to carry. It was written, signed, sealed. My grandfather had given me more than an inheritance. He'd given me a weapon. Maya finally broke, tears streaking down her cheeks. Stop it, both of you. Don't you see what you're doing? You've already lost him once. Do you really want to lose him forever? They didn't answer. They couldn't. Because in that moment, it was clear they cared more about property and pride than the son sitting across from them. And for the first time, I wasn't afraid to walk away with both the truth and the keys in my hands. Thanks so much for watching this full story through to the end. Your support means the world. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and share your own experiences in the comments. I'd love to hear them. Until next time, remember, telling the truth is never selfish.